Today we're going to be replacing the gear on our starter. We installed this starter in a video you can check out here, but we had some issues with a flex plate failure. So this is pretty mangled. As you can see, the welds broke on this and you can move the ring. So that's definitely not what you want. Even though our flex plate was shimmed properly and our starter was shimmed properly, the failure of the flex plate really chewed up the teeth on this. So we're gonna go ahead and tear this down and we're going to replace it with this new gear. So to start out, we're gonna remove these two T25 bolts. And that's gonna remove this collar and that surface. Now to access the ring that's holding this gear on, we have to remove these 4 bolts, one here, and these 2. These are Allen's, and those are 8 mils, it looks like. To get to these 2 first bolts, we're gonna take a small flathead screwdriver and pop off our shims. And now we can get an Allen on those. There we go, and we'll flip it around and remove these 8 mils. All right, and that should just wiggle right off there. And we're gonna watch out for that gear. We don't wanna lose that. Ooh. Okay, we're gonna put all those back. Okay, everything's fine, nobody panic. Perfect, you don't wanna lose any of those bearings or that gear, but we can go ahead and set that to the side. And we're going to turn our attention to this thing. We've been trying to get the snap ring off the end of this gear for a hot minute, and we finally got it. We're gonna show you guys what we did, and it worked for us. Maybe you'll have an easier time, but this might save you an hour or so. So what we did is we drilled a hole into a 2x4 and hammered a socket in there that fits on this gear, so we can push up on it and then push this gear down. So we do that by setting it on there, sliding a flat piece of steel right over the teeth of the gear, and we're going to clamp that all to the table, and that's gonna compress the springs and give us enough room to get that snap ring out. So if you can see this, we have these clamps clamped down and we've pushed down the gear, which means we have access to that snap ring. And what we're gonna do is take this funny looking pick and go to the opposite side of where the split is, and we can wedge that in between the gear, and we should be able to get underneath it and pop it up. There we go. And then we can release our clamps. Quick disconnect. Remove the retaining clip thing, pull off our metal, and then our gear slides right off. Now we can remove this spring as well as this small ring that holds the spring in place. There we go. And all of those parts are going to be replaced by pieces in our replacement gear kit. So let's open that up. So as you can see, we have the collar, the spring, a new snap ring, and that spring retainer. So now all we have to do, put on spring retainer first, make sure that's lined up with all the gears, the new spring, and our new gear. And we're gonna put all of this back into our jig. There could be better engineering behind this. I'm just gonna come out and say it. There we are. And you can see it's sitting on the socket, and we've got the gear pressed so there's plenty of space. And this retainer goes with the bevel side face up, so that flat part is going to go down onto the gear. And we just reinstall our snap ring by slipping it over the top. Now that we got that all together, we just have to pinch this ring to make sure the collar will fit around it. If the locking collar doesn't go completely over the locking ring, you may have to tap the back end with a hammer to get it to seat fully. And now that that's fully seated, we can put it all back together and we should be good to go. All right, so we're gonna bring this guy back over here with our gear and bearing and our other little bearing, I guess. And what we're gonna do is put the ball back in there, reinstall the gear and bearing there, and we should be able to slide this back into place, making sure that that spring slides into there and that this dowel slides into its place, as well as meshes with this gear. So we'll just gently work that in, make sure everything looks lined up. And press down. And that dowel lined up, all of our holes line up, so we're going to install all of these finger tight with the 2 black screws going on to the end by the gear and the 2 long screws coming in from the back. And we're alternating so everything gets cinched up evenly. Now that we've got those all tight, next step would be to reinstall your shims here. Since we have a new flex plate and we aren't quite sure what shims we're going to need, we're gonna go ahead and leave ours off and reinstall this without them. But if you weren't changing the flex plate and simply wanted to replace the gear, then you would put it back exactly how it came out. Get that seated on there. Next, we're gonna slip over this metal piece, and they recommend using blue Loctite when reinstalling these bolts. So we're just gonna add a little dot there and one right here and tighten those up. And we're alternating back and forth. If this metal mounting plate isn't fully seated on there, by tightening these up, alternating, it's gonna seat on there nice and flat. Perfect, and that's the starter back together. If you want to check out a video on how to install and properly shim this starter, you can check it out here. If you like the video, like the video. If you want to subscribe for more, and we'll catch you later.